In other words, when there is excess revenue, nakalagay dito excess revenue. So pwedeng gamitin na kaagad sa unprogram appropriations. Tama?
Correct, Your Honor.
So, ibig sabihin, the category of programmed and unprogrammed does not really have a material difference. Because in the interpretation of government, pwede kapag merong excess na pera, excess na revenue, na hindi naka-earmark, na pwedeng gamitin na ito kaagad sa unprogrammed funds. Tama?
Tama po, Your Honor.
And that was why Senator Drilon was actually proposing that we have to be clearer. And actually also Secretary Butch was also saying that, and of course Secretary Jokno was also saying, you have to discipline all of this so that it's very clear that it should be in program funds. In terms of the total, it was increased. And the NEP, correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Solgen, the NEP contained both program and unprogram, correct? The National Expenditure Program or the President's budget already contained a proposal for unprogram, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the NEP is both program, automatic, and unprogrammed, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
But in 2026, which is also a budget in issue today, this is the petition of Congressman Erice, who was here, and Congressman De Lima. The NEP was 4.6 billion, correct?
For 2026.
I put it up there. But what was actually approved by the houses, by both houses, and the President was lower. It was 4.646, with a corresponding decrease also in the unprogrammed appropriation, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, okay. So that we know what we're talking about, in 2024, we will start to put up now the additions in the unprogrammed fund that was included after not the third readings of the houses, both the House and the Senate, but after the BICAM. So the first slide will show you, let's put up the slide, Panay Guimaras Island Bridges Project, 3 billion. Universal access to quality tertiary education, 7 billion. This was from the program transferred into the unprogrammed, correct, Solgen?
Yes, Your Honor.
And universal access to quality tertiary education, would you know if there is a law that actually requires funding for this? Universal access to quality tertiary education.
May I confer, Your Honor, with my team?
Yes, you may defer your answer until, unless you have it now. Yes? Is this the Bama-Aquino law? Yes, and this is the law that actually provides free tertiary education, which was first under the President's budget program. But in 2024, it was moved to unprogrammed. And later on, of course, we will ask questions about whether this is in fact not only constitutional, but whether it was legal that it is moved from one program item to unprogrammed. Then there is number 11, a quite interesting nomenclature, priority social programs for health, social welfare and development. It says priority, but this also came from program and it was transferred to unprogrammed, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. The AFP has been wanting modernization for a long time, but the revised AFP modernization program of 10 billion, is this billion? Yes, was transferred to unprogrammed funds, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. Then also, payment of right-of-way was transferred from program to unprogrammed, amount of 3 billion, correct? Yes.
Correct, Your Honor.
And then pre-feasibility studies, preliminary and detailed engineering, 3 billion. Later on, we will encounter this again. And then next, Public-private partnership, strategic support fund, maintenance, repair, rehabilitation of infrastructure. Number 17 is interesting. Government counterpart of foreign assisted project in the amount of 51 billion. This is different from the item on foreign assisted projects that I will show you later. This came from program. This was a definite expenditure for government counterpart for foreign assisted projects. It was moved from the program funds to the unprogrammed. Then next, for the repair, rehabilitation, and expansion of Dalawa International Airport, I can only guess who transferred this. Payment of personnel benefits in number 19. Madam Solgen, you agree that 59 billion for payment of personal benefits was considered as unprogrammed from program, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then, pension and gratuity fund. This means that the retirement fund of a lot of our government employees, and I can only guess perhaps a portion of this, some of our judiciary personnel not covered by our existing law, 40 billion, 250 also to the unprogrammed, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Then you have the libreng sakay became unprogrammed, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Also the screening of anti-terrorist equipment, etc., unprogrammed. National Data Privacy Program, 620 million became unprogrammed. Preparation for national election in 2025, since there was no election, perhaps they moved it to unprogrammed. Construction and repair of NFA warehouse facilities, also unprogrammed. Development and modernization plan for the Iwahig. Then the next slide, you will see there, interestingly, acquisition of fire trucks became unprogrammed, not programmed. Then digital agriculture project also became unprogrammed. Then the next slide, aquaculture, fisheries, Marawi Siege Victims Compensation Program. This is the long-awaited compensation to the victims of Marawi. From program, it was transferred to unprogrammed. Supplementary feeding program, I think this was for younger kids that were indigents. Then, next slide, the creation of lawyer positions in the PAO became unprogrammed. Perhaps lawyers are not that important anyway. And then we have finally the last one, number 50, OWA Welfare Services. This is the office that produces support for OFWs, was also moved to the unprogrammed funds. This was in 2024. Oh, and total, at the end, there is local government support fund in the amount of 5 billion was moved from program to unprogrammed. We will ask you later what this is, what this item is all about, or perhaps some of my colleagues will be able to ask you if I cannot. And the total in terms of additions to unprogrammed was 303 billion, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
But this was not all. There was an increase in the already set items for unprogrammed. And the first one was mentioned by one of our amici as, and she called it a new pork barrel. I will not go to that extent because that may be a legal terminology, but it is definitely perhaps a lump sum item, which was covered also in the case of Arroyo, Belgica, especially the Belgica of 2013, penned by Justice Ben. So the NEP proposed that the SAGIP program was only 50 billion, but in 2024, this lump sum was increased to 225 billion pesos, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And for support to foreign assisted projects, maybe they were, as one of our amici was saying, they were predicting that some of the foreign assisted projects in the pipeline might be approved. It was increased from 117 to 178, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
So this is the situation that I think all of us are agreed upon, which is now at issue, because 2024, as shown by our various amici, was the year where there was an extraordinary increase in the amount of unappropriated, unprogrammed funds, not unappropriated, but unprogrammed funds. Okay, now let us proceed. The concept, let's talk about the architecture in our Constitution, because we need to talk about the various provisions in context so everybody understands it. So the Constitution does not give one branch of government what is usually referred to as the power of the purse, because the power of the purse is big and consistent with the architecture of the Constitution. The contents of that power are distributed among constitutional departments and organs. Do you agree?
I agree, Your Honor.
And the basic idea behind separation of powers is to prevent tyranny and ultimately to increase accountability, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
The separation of powers doctrine assumes that unchecked power tend towards tyranny. So liberty requires institutional restraints within government, assigning functions to distinct organs. The structure expresses a rule of law ideal, which is that governments must proceed in temporarily ordered phases: legislation, administration, adjudication, and accountability, rather than through undifferentiated sovereign will. You agree?
I agree, Your Honor.
And appropriation and spending funds are critical for governance. You agree?
I agree, Your Honor.
Appropriation and spending funds is not only because of whim, but it is part of an overall plan of the executive and hopefully with the participation of the legislative. And in our case, as presented by one of the amici, there is actually a Philippine Development Plan, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And it is from 2023 to 2028, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. Just to take note, the court has an SPJI, strategic plan also, and we are implementing it with budgeting also here. So, but in a political economy where there is a deficit of equality, where there is poverty, and when therefore there is a lot of disempowerment, with most of our people being only able to govern through voting and dissent and criticism, the extent of prerogative of those in departments or constitutional organs must be clearly and adequately defined. Do you agree?
I agree, Your Honor.
And in interpreting the Constitution, though, apart from this purpose, we must be mindful as the court that the judiciary, unlike the executive and the legislative, is not possessed with complete, current, and contingent information. You agree?
Agree, Your Honor.
And that the executive must also be given some appropriate leeway by both this court and Congress to address the current situation. You agree?
I agree, Your Honor.
And that laws, including the General Appropriations Act, are frameworks and limits plans of action, but they do not and should not unduly shackle the executive to address what has not been fully foreseen despite reasonable and diligent efforts, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Like the situation we have today, that when the budget was passed, no one could have imagined what will happen in the Middle East, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
But I am sure, and we are witness to the fact that both the House and the Senate are currently investigating, holding hearings in aid of legislation to see what they can do to supplement whatever powers are needed by the President to address the current situation. In fact, they passed a law allowing the President to suspend excise taxes, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. In other words, we should be mindful that we should not straitjacket the reading of the text of the Constitution, even with precedents, and make sure that the Constitution should be a living but empowering document, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes, empowering, but also a document with accountability, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Because as Richard Posner said, the Constitution is a living document, but it is not a suicide pact, correct? In other words, the Constitution is a living document. However, it's not a suicide pact. In other words, all the departments must be rational in terms of arriving at their own conclusions with respect to their own power canalized, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay. And for a purpose of exercising the power of the purse, just so that we are all clear, this is divided as follows. The executive, the president, and there's only one executive in the Constitution, it's the president, and everybody is the alter ego, prepares the budget, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
The legislature, and that is Congress, with the House acting first, authorizes or appropriates, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Then the president, and the president only, spends or executes with clarification, again, by our case in 2013, that the legislature has no participation in the post-enactment or execution stage. You agree?
Agree, Your Honor.
And the Commission on Audit, as a constitutional organ, checks on the expenditures, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
The ombudsman can prosecute, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And the judiciary, of course, is tasked with interpreting the boundaries of these powers as contained in the text of the Constitution and in statutes, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Now, during your presentation, in your opening statement, you mentioned the case of KMU versus Aquino. Do you recall in what context? That KMU versus Aquino is the ponensya that actually said that the court respects that all the organs of government can have first crack at the interpretation of the text of the Constitution, and it respects that, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
But then there is also some wording in that case that says that in the final analysis, it is the duty of this court to give a final reading, correct or wrong, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. Would you know how I know?
You were the ponente.
Yes, I was the ponente, and the case was unanimous in terms of this court. Okay. Now, let's look at the actual provisions in the budgetary process so that we are also clear. To look at the architecture of the Constitution, we start with the basic provision in Article 6, Section 29. So it's up there. No money shall be paid out of the treasury except in pursuance of an appropriation made by law. You agree with me that this single provision shows the relationship between the executive and the legislature, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. Is there any other money that can be spent by government that is not in the treasury mentioned in the Constitution?
No, none, Your Honor.
All collections are submitted to the treasury except for fiscally autonomous institutions like the judiciary, because there is a separate provision in the Constitution for that, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. So the whole cycle includes preparation of the budget, appropriation, budget execution, and budget audit. Agree?
I agree, Your Honor.
The issues we now face are generally about that stage of authorization or appropriation, correct?
Correct.
With its impact on preparation and execution, but principally about authorization. You agree?
I agree, Your Honor.
So, in terms of preparation, the provision, the basic provision on the part of the executive is Article 7, Section 22, which states that the President shall submit to the Congress within 30 days as basis for the General Appropriations Bill a budget of expenditures and sources of financing, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. And the budget of expenditures and sources of financing in the current interpretation, in practice, contemporary executive interpretation, and in the law as contained in the administrative code, the BESF is actually the budget of expenditures and sources of financing, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And it says, including receipts from existing and proposed revenue measures, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
At some point, we will see that the word including is contested by the respondents and one of the petitioners. But it's very clear here that the President only submits one budget, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Because it says a budget of expenditures and sources of financing. We will relate this later to Section 25, subparagraph 1, in relation to the increases in the budget of the President, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes, and the budget contains you agree with me, sources of financing, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. Now, parenthetically, no, here. Does this provision allow deficits? In other words, is there anything in our Constitution that says that our budget must always be a balanced budget?
None, Your Honor.
Madam Soljan, just to be clear, what is a balanced budget?
A balanced budget, Your Honor, is you have expenditures, and the expenditures will have to be supported by the sources of financing.
Yes. So, would you say, so this allows for this statement, and the Constitution allows that the President actually tells Congress, we are going to have a deficit, correct? Based on the projected revenues as well as the expenditures, that we will have deficits, correct?
Can you repeat your question?
In other words, that the Constitution allows the President to communicate to Congress through the NEP and through the budget of expenditures and sources of finance, that we are expecting to have a budgetary deficit, which means that our current income revenues coming from tax and non-tax measures will not be sufficient to cover the proposed authorization of expenses, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. Sa madalit salita, pwedeng sabihin ng Pangulo sa ating Kongreso na ang kanyang budget ay kulang sa revenue pero mas marami ang expenditures. Tama?
Tama, Your Honor.
Yes.
May I clarify
Yes.
also? In our briefings by the DBM, what we understand is that even the deficit spending is being planned, and part of
Yes.
there is a deficit framework.
Yes.
Globally, there could be a target level which is accepted as an acceptable level, and it will depend on our executive branch
Yes.
as to what that level is.
Actually, later, we will go into a bit of the economics just to make sure that people know that this is legitimate to have a deficit financing. I will not go into it with you. I will go into it with some of my former professors. And I do so with a lot of trepidation because I did get a high grade in basic economics from Professor Monsod, and also a higher grade in public finance from Professor Dr. Jokno. And I don't know if they can recall those grades now, but in any case, subject to contempt of court, of course. So deficits are there. Mainly, they can be filled in by income. Let us say they did not predict that there was high dividends from one of our government-owned and controlled corporation, non-tax revenue, correct?
Correct.
Or perhaps a new tax that would be passed by government, correct?
Correct.
Or a good performance of our economy, therefore increasing the amount that we collect in, let us say, value-added tax because there is more transactions, correct?
Correct.
So also, it can be filled in by borrowings.
Correct.
Such as, for instance, when the Monetary Board issues a treasury bill of different maturities depending on their monetary policy. And these are actually borrowings that we have, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And technically speaking, all our currency is in a debt, except that we will not get into that, correct?
Thank you, Your Honor.
And that it is also possible that we borrow from foreign sources, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And with respect to foreign sources, that is also regulated by the Constitution, more specifically Section 20, which actually says that the only, that we can contract, the President may contract foreign loans only with the prior concurrence of the Monetary Board, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And that the Constitution also says the discretion of the Monetary Board and the President to contract foreign loans can be regulated also by Congress because it says as may be provided by law, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And that at the end of each calendar year, there is a submission to the Congress so that they can monitor our foreign loans and what we have guaranteed. There is a report, correct?
Correct.
And that the manner of this report can be governed also by law, correct?
Correct, Your
So there is a check and balance with respect to foreign borrowings, and this was wisely included in our 87 Constitution. It was not in our 35 Constitution by the constitutional commissioners. One of them is actually present in the session hall right now in the person of Commissioner Christian Monsod, correct?
Correct.
Yes, and I had the privilege of being a research assistant of a constitutional commissioner. I carried the briefcase of one of them at that time, so I know how they thought in a while. Okay, and domestic borrowings. Who authorizes domestic borrowings? If you know,
May I confer, Your
the Monetary Board for Treasury bills, etc., and others. Okay, now all these proposed borrowings, should they be indicated in the budget of expenditures and sources of financing?
It should be included, Your Honor.
So it is there. It is part of the premise of the budget that is given there. They are going to say, the president is going to say in the BESF that there are going to be loans. So in other words, the NEP already contains all the premises for all types of budget, program, unprogram, etc. Correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. And now let's look at authorization, just so we're on the same page. One of the main bases and the point of contention is Section 29, well, not really contention, but 29, subparagraph 1 and 3 of Article 6. So we already mentioned subparagraph 1, and then there is the concept of a special fund. And this was interrogated by the court in the latest case of involving PhilHealth with Justice Ami as the ponensya, for which our amici, Professor Monsod said, we did something good, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes. So there is a special fund to be differentiated from a special appropriations law. There are laws that create special funds, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Very briefly, are these special funds the SAGF, special allotments in the general fund? Is this the same?
The special fund, if the law that provides for the special fund says that it is automatically appropriated every year, then it goes to SAGF, it goes to an account.
So all special funds are or should be in SAGFs, correct? And not all SAGFs are special funds.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Incidentally, the legislature is also involved in terms of taxation as a revenue source, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
So therefore, when the president says that in the BESF that it will request for new revenue sources, it will in fact be signaling to Congress that they will be proposing new taxes, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes, and this is covered in Section 28. I will just flash it briefly, just so we know. Now, there are limits to what Congress can do with respect to the president's budget, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And let's read and parse the provisions very carefully before we go into further interpellation. So let us look at Section 25, subparagraph 1. There are two sentences there. The first one is, Congress may not increase the appropriations recommended by the President for the operation of the government as specified in the budget. Correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Very clear. And it says, the appropriations recommended by the President for the operation of government as specified in the budget, correct?
Correct.
Now, Madam Solgen, there is another word, the same word budget, that appears in Article 7, the President, correct? That was Section 22, where it said the President shall propose a budget of expenditures and sources of financing, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
As part of the NEP, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
So therefore, here it is clear that whatever is in the NEP should not be increased by Congress.
Your Honor, may I?
You will qualify.
Yes.
Because for you, the unprogrammed funds, no, first, the automatic appropriations are not part of the budget of the President, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And the unprogrammed funds are also not part of the budget, correct?
They are not part of the budget that is, we believe that that is not the part of the budget where the prohibition on increasing the ceiling is applicable.
Okay, I'll take that for now, under advisement. But the point is that, so if you say automatic appropriations is not part of the budget of the President, then I will ask you later to locate it in the Constitution where it is. And the other point is it possible that the unprogrammed funds is not in Section 1, subsection 1, but in subsection 4? A special appropriations bill shall specify the purpose for which it is intended and shall be supported by funds actually available as certified by the National Treasurer or to be raised by a corresponding revenue proposed therein, as suggested by one of our amici, a justice of this court in one recent case, and some of the petitioners, that unprogrammed can be disciplined using subparagraph 4. What is the position of government?
It is the position of government that the special appropriations bill is a separate provision in the Constitution. The Congress has the option. It can be invoked, it can be passed, and historically has been passed. In our study and survey of the different special appropriations bill, the length of time could be as, I think I saw.
We can go to the difficulty of passing a special appropriations bill at some point, and it can be part of the query, I think, of some of the justices. But as far as I'm concerned, I just want to locate where you see automatic appropriation. You say that it is not in subsection 1, and you're asking the court to actually make a ruling for the first time that automatic appropriation is not part of the GAA.
Okay, the automatic appropriations, we say that it is not part of the President's budget because the NEP, which is the President's budget, is presented to the Congress for their approval. However, the automatic appropriations, our premise is that it already has an approval. So we were actually asking the DBM, then why are you including it in the budget, which could be a source of confusion? Because people will just look at the totals, but and their explanation is that for fiscal programming and for transparency, so that it is informing Congress of the total allocation, including the allocations for the automatic appropriation. So in that sense,
it is only for disclosure in your words,
yes.
in your comment, in your omnibus comment. It is for disclosure, not for purpose of appropriation, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, but there is a purpose for subparagraph 1, and we can go to that later. And whether that squares with your characterization of automatic appropriations is there. And indeed, this court has just ruled in the case of Giao versus PAGCOR, where it actually said that there is an automatic release of PAGCOR funds to sorry, it's Giao versus Philippine Sports Commission from PAGCOR et al. But we will get to that later. In any case, just to flag the different points of view of the parties in relation to unprogrammed appropriations. Now, at issue also is, to a certain extent, presidential certification. I think this was raised by, if I'm not mistaken, the pleading of Pimentel et al., former Senator Pimentel. And what is at issue is the concept of when the president can certify, and flashing to you on the board, on the screen, except when the president certifies the necessity of its immediate enactment to meet a public calamity or emergency. So later on, I will ask you, because of the certification, was it possible to ratify the BCC, the Bicameral Committee Conference report, in just the same day that it was distributed? Okay. Just for our information, how thick is the General Appropriations Act? It is a few feet, no, inches.
3 to 4.
Thousands of
4
pages.
volumes.
Yes, and thousands of pages, correct?
Correct.
So they will have the NEP with them, and they will also have the GAA with them, and in between, they have the GAB, they have the Senate version, and they have the Bicameral Conference Committee report, the big one, and the small committee report for 2024 and 25, correct?
Correct.
Yes, so you admit that there was a small committee conference report? Not yet.
I have.
Just so I am very clear that it is in fact there, that there was a bicameral conference committee report and preceded by a small committee report.
I have not seen a small committee report.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Yes, because I asked you and I wanted you to be more deliberate and conscious, just so the transcript will not show that the government has admitted. Okay, now, appropriations is a special kind of law. It is not an ordinary law. This applies to general laws and perhaps also special kinds of law. Appropriations is a special kind of law because first, it originates from the House, Article 6, Section 24. Second, the President has line item veto on this particular law and no other. Third is, by the end of the fiscal year, it immediately lapses. Unlike any ordinary general law, it does not immediately lapse. It is reenacted, correct?
Correct.
Yes, and there is, in fact, a position from one of the petitioners, because of the automatic reenactment, what is always the national emergency involved in passing a law? Just so we're clear that we acknowledge that there is that issue and you had your own response, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. May I now ask, I will call on you later, may I now ask on our amici, Professor Solita Collas Monsod, and may I ask her to take the podium this time? Because she has called me out that during her presentation, she lost her opportunity to actually face the court en banc because she was sitting down.
Your Honor, may I sit or?
Yeah, please sit down.
Thank
Please
you.
sit down, yes.
Alan, palitan yung TV.
Thank you, Professor. May I just ask a few basic questions, and I hope my questions are correct. The budget for 2024, 2025, and 2026 is based on deficit spending. And our research shows these figures in terms of the deficits in the program. So for the 2024 program, it was 5.6% of the total budget, total expenditures. In 2025, it was 5.5%, and in 2026, it is 5.3%. Would I be accurate to say that this is the rounded off figures?
I have in my figures 5.7 in 2024, 5.6 in 2025.
Okay, so I stand corrected.
No,
Yes.
you may be right.
Yes. Professor, my question is, why is there a deficit budget? Why is it economically sensible to have a budgetary deficit? Because the understanding of the ordinary person is you do not spend what you do not have. And therefore, why is it that government produces a deficit?
Well, the government budget is a little different from the household budget. The household budget, the family has to stay within its limits. But in the government budget, considering certain plans, the need for government to stabilize the economy or to do whatever, it needs certain funds and can be allowed to have a deficit as long as over time that deficit is removed and it becomes surplus. In other words, the budget balance is not only for 1 year. It can be, the budget can be balanced over a longer period of time.
And may I ask, that deficit is not something that is arbitrary,
No,
but it is something that is studied by our economic managers.
absolutely, sir.
And the reason for this is it doesn't want to be irresponsible for the next administrations, and it wants to leave our economic fundamentals intact before it passes to a next generation.
That's right, sir.
Okay. Now, to cover the budget, just so we are clear, there are non-tax revenues and there are taxes as revenues. And if I may just show very briefly and very quickly, non-tax includes fees and charges, not taxes, income from treasury operations. These are interest incomes on our government deposits, like from our land bank. We have advances to GOCCs that are returned, income from our investments, including Maharlika Fund, etc. Guarantee fees that are paid to government, foreign exchange risk cover fee, government service income. Am I correct here that these are the income from treasury operations?
Your Honor, you're right.
Yes. And then for national government income collected by the Bureau of Treasury, shares in dividends, airport terminals, etc. Then we have royalties for our natural resources like Malampaya, and we have foreign grants. Am I correct, Professor, that foreign grants are not treated the same as foreign loans?
They are different. Foreign grants don't have any interest component.
And foreign
Loans, you have
grants,
to pay interest.
yes. And because foreign grants are almost free,
Gifts.
gifts, so we receive them subject only to the political conditionalities or other conditionalities that a donor may give. But does this need to go through the monetary board or our economic managers?
I'm not sure that it has to go. Whether, but if it's a grant, it will be
Yes.
definitely accepted.
Yes. Professor, is it correct to say that the more we keep a deficit, the more dangerous it is in terms of our indebtedness?
Oh, it is correct, sir.
And
Your Honor.
therefore, even the deficit that is proposed by our economic managers, and you were one of those key economic managers many times in our government, and you teach this also to our up-and-coming economists, that it is very important that we keep it also to a certain ratio or percentage.
Yes, Your Honor. That's why it's one of the highlight indicators in the Philippine Development Plan.
Yes.
The deficit.
Yes. And would you kindly enlighten us what are the important ratios that we should take into consideration?
Well, the eventual target is to get that deficit down to zero. As I said, the government has is allowed certain leeway, but it must eventually get down to zero. That's why the deficit target of the 2028 budget of the 2023-2028 development plan was to get that deficit down originally it was to get the deficit down to 3% of GDP But in the interim that the plan has been in operation, they have retargeted. Now they want to retarget down to 4.3% of GDP. In other words, they realize that their deficit targeting was way below standard, and they had to change the deficit targets, mainly because of this stuff that's going on now.
And in your presentation, you showed us that we missed on several targets, which included the deficit and which included the national debt stock.
Yes.
And would you say that we are at very dangerous times?
Not quite. It's not quite dangerous times. There are certain rules of thumb, and but we're close because, for example, the rule of thumb with respect to debt stock to GDP is that it should not exceed 60%, and we are now at
63,
We are now at 61.
61.
Sus ko, hindi ko mabasa eh. Excuse me. Let's stop. 63, 60.7% in 2024. We're just over that rule of thumb. Rule of thumb that we should keep the debt stock to less than 60% of GDP.
And would you say, Professor, that the interpretation of the court with respect to the words that we find in the Constitution is also as critical for fiscal discipline? In other words, that we should interpret the provisions in the Constitution not only from the original intent of our forefathers, but also from the point of view of what is practical, what the words can bear given the current circumstances and given the creativities of many of the agencies.
I absolutely agree, Your Honor. You yourself said that the Constitution is a living thing.
Yes, and
So
that,
it must change and adapt.
our legal interpretation also is should be also a sort of an economic interpretation, in the sense that we should be fully aware of the opportunity lost and etc.
I fully agree, Your Honor.
Thank you, Professor. Now I am confident that I learned my economics 11 and 101. May I call on former Secretary Butchabad to the stand, please. Secretary, you once were quoted as having called the alarm regarding our debt stock. That 48% of our debt was supposed to be now, 48% of our revenue is now being paid off for our debt, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And since you were DBM Secretary, may I ask, where in the NEP or the BESF do we find the commitments to pay for interest rate on our debt, both domestic and foreign?
It's, well, in the GAA, you can find the allocation for servicing interest, but the amortization of principal, you do not find in the GAA because it's not an interest, it's not an expense, but in the other parts of the GAA.
So that is what I want to clarify, that the payment of the principal cannot be found in the Government Appropriations Act, even if it is something that we use our resources for, but it is not subject to the authorization of the Congress, nor is it made public as to how much our principal costs us for every year.
Yes, because The payment of principal is like a financial transaction. You are just repaying what you borrow. And like for 2026, as you correctly pointed out, our deficit is 1.5 trillion, but we have to pay principal amortization to the tune of 1.1 trillion. So we have to borrow this year 2.6 trillion to cover the deficit as well as the payment of principal, which, as I said, is a financial transaction not to be found in the GAA.
Okay. Would it be found in the BESF?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of that, but it's in some part of the GAA, but not in the expenditures part of the GAs.
So with respect to the payment of our interest, may I just show you a slide? And this we got from the program amounts of payment in the GAA and BESF, and we contrasted it with the BTR cash operations report, the actuals that were made. And in our study, 2023 and 2024, the actual payment for interest was higher than the program interest. Now, would you know where we get payment for the additional interest because it was higher? Is this in unprogram?
No, I think there is a presidential decree 1177 that obligates us to pay above all else our interest obligations as well as our principal amortizations, Your Honor.
So the amount that is put in the GAA can be actually overturned or changed in terms of the actual payment because there is that presidential decree.
Yes, if it comes to that, ahead of any national priorities, those come first. And there are deleterious consequences if we don't do that.
Okay.
Like, for example, the immediate, there's a word for it, that we have to pay all our debts
Yes.
once that happens. So we have to make sure that that obligation is settled first. And to make sure that happens automatically, our
Yes.
creditors, in the early days of martial law, insisted with President Marcos
Yes.
that presidential decree should be issued.
Thank you. I go into this just to clarify the effect of whatever decision we make in terms of the planned deficits and its impact on something which I think many of us are concerned about. It is our debt stock and our interest payments. So just bear with me a little bit more, just so we get the actual context. So in terms of principal amortization, we had no other source except the BTR cash operations report. And from our, we did a table, and the table said that in 2023, and I can be corrected here, I'm just looking at the ballpark figures, the principal payment in 2023 was 943.6 billion. In 2024, it was 1.1 trillion 257 billion. And in 2025, it was 2025, the preliminary figures is 1.157 trillion in terms of our principal amortization payments. Would you say that these figures are more or less in that ballpark?
Well, the average proportion of debt owed domestically and debt owed abroad is about 80 to 20%.
Yes.
Your Honor.
Yes, but in terms of principal payment, in 2024, we paid 1 trillion in debt payment, correct? And that would have meant for a budget of, let us say, 4 or 5 billion, that was quite a lot.
It is.
Yes.
In fact, that's really, the concern is not so much debt sustainability, Your Honor, but it's really what debt servicing is impacting on fiscal space or the ability to have available funds. Like say, for example, in this instance, we are facing a crisis in the Middle East. We need a lot of funds to be able to support our efforts there, which were not originally planned for. So that if you have a increasing narrowing of your fiscal space, then your ability to respond to contingencies is very much limited, Your Honor.
And going to slide number 33 in my presentation, there is if we look at the debt service ratios from 2023 to 2025, and just following what was said a while ago, the debt service ratio, total debt service to revenues in 2023, 41.1%, meaning to say 40% of all our revenues were used to pay for debt service.
That's correct.
2024, it was 45%, and in 2025, it was 45%. That is because we were constantly missing our targets, and therefore our debt service ratio was increasing. And would this mean that 45% of all revenues in 2025 was spent to pay our debt before a single classroom is built?
Yeah, that's not correct, Your Honor. Our inability to use our debts to increase our productive capacity and our very limited revenue generation programs results in much of the revenues we generate are eaten up by the payment of interest and ahead of even the most important priorities that we have to attend to, like public health and basic education, Your Honor.
So this is what you mean, or what the Amici mean, as fiscal discipline. That we need to be able to control the spending vis-a-vis our revenue and vis-a-vis our future because of this particular effect, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And fiscal discipline, therefore, though not yet a part of a constitutional value, what we value now is accountability, transparency, etc. Would you say that it should be one of the targets in terms of a constitutional value to be proclaimed by this court because it has such an important bearing to the interpretation of some of the provisions that will have economic consequences?
That's correct, especially in the ongoing discussion about unprogrammed appropriations. For example, Your Honor, if we take a huge part of the appropriation cover of foreign assisted projects and put them somewhere else, while you can pay for those use of the appropriation cover for some other projects, while you can pay for them by cash management, eventually you still have to pay borrowings and the increase in deficit that will happen. But these are things that are not known publicly, and in fact, it's good that we're talking about unprogrammed appropriations, especially for the past 3 years when a good part of the program appropriations were diverted for other projects other than what the President put in the national expenditures program, Your Honor.
Thank you, Secretary. The other point that I'd like to make is the debt service ratios, the targets for 2026 was premised on a growth rate, correct?
That's
That
correct.
growth rate being 6.6%, if I'm not mistaken, correct? But actually now, it might be different given the current circumstances. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And therefore,
Radically.
actually, it was 6.5%, and showing to you slide number 35. Okay, we did very basic, and this might be wrong, but a recalculation. So if the BESF of 2026 was 6.5%, if our growth rate becomes 5% or 4%, we saw the figures, the debt to GDP ratio would increase from 62.3, which is the target this year, to something like, if it's a 4% growth rate, it might become 65.1%. Of course, our calculation can always be wrong, but given the lowering of just to show that the lowering of the growth rate will also have an impact on our debt to revenue and debt to GDP ratio, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Then, of course, we have taken into consideration that what we are facing now and the context where we are making a decision right now is a crisis, a fuel crisis. And if we had three scenarios, an optimistic scenario where in 2 weeks' time there will be ceasefire, or in 6 months' time, a medium scenario, there will be a ceasefire, or the extreme scenario that the entire year there will be war in the Middle East, and continuing with whatever threats were given by the male leaders of the three countries that are involved. So showing to you 36, slide 36, it is possible that the cost for every barrel of oil will increase. And then slide 37, macroeconomic impact on the Philippines. And slide 38, it will have indeed a very strong impact on our projections, or the projections right now under the GAA. Would this be a right approach if we wanted to analyze where we are headed?
Well, it's better to see a worst case scenario and prepare for it, and then if a lesser degree of crisis happens, then you're more or less covered. But our difficulty as a nation, Your Honor, is that this crisis that came upon us as a result of the Middle East war is really more an aggravation over a crisis that has been simmering. In fact, if you recall the statement of the central bank governor, he said, "I've done everything that monetary policy can do to grow our economy, and it's time for reforms in governance and it's time for fiscal reforms and governance to do their share."
So this is an aggravation of an already existing structural crisis, and that the governor of the central bank said that they've done everything that they could with respect to monetary policy. I am tempted to ask Dr. Jokno, except that I cannot, because it will have an impact on our markets if I ask him something about that. But thank you for that. And again, when we did this, just to see our context, we were so thankful that we are only reading the law and the Constitution and not managing our economy. But that we know that whatever we do in interpretation will have an impact on what we need as a country.
I agree, Your Honor.
Thank you, Secretary. May I now So there is this magnitude of our debt servicing. There is our deficit. Okay. So the question that we want to ask you is, when there is an excess revenue, where should it go first? Legally and constitutionally, or is there no standard? When there is excess revenue, should it go to program, unprogrammed, and because you created a new one, automatic appropriation?
Your Honor, the sources of funds for the program are different from the sources of funds of the unprogrammed. appropriations.
But the triggers in the unprogrammed section includes any excess in non-tax revenues for 2025 and 2026. And in 2024, it was both tax and non-tax revenues. Any excess. It did not qualify.
Yes, yes, Your Honor. For the first trigger, on excess revenue collections in any one of identified non-tax revenue from its corresponding original targets as reflected in the BESF. So meaning, for this first trigger, Your Honor, then the priority will be once it only exceeds the source of financing for the program, then it will trigger for the unprogrammed appropriation.
Sa madalit salita, sinabi natin kanina na may deficit. Ibig sabihin, yung planadong expenditures, pasensya na Ilocano ako pero nagtatagalog ako. So yung gastusin natin ay mas malaki kaysa sa kikitahin natin. Yun yung nakalagay na sa program. Na kahit sa programmed expenses, mas malaki na yung gagastusin natin kaysa yung kikitahin natin. At nakalagay doon sa ating BESF na kapag merong additional na income, hindi maliwanag, sa pakiwari ko, hindi maliwanag kung gagastusin yan muna doon sa program or pwede nang gastusin palagi doon sa, or pwede nang gastusin doon sa unprogram. Di naman palagi, pero pwede nang gastusin sa program. In other words, my question is there anything in statute or in the Constitution which compels in the budget execution that whenever there is excess income, and I will now go to excess income in non-tax revenues because that is the trigger in 25 and 26, that it should first be spent for program before unprogram.
It is only in the GAA, Your Honor.
So in other words, there is no constitutional frame where it says finish the unprogram first before you can go to the unprogram, except the case of Araulio, but it in a general sense, and I would even submit a bit of obiter, correct?
Correct, Your Honor. But the Araulio, based on our position, is premised on a different GAA, and the articulation of the triggers in the Araulio case are different from the articulation of the triggers in the 2024, 2025 to 2026 GAAs. And also in the Araulio case, there was a subsequent motion for reconsideration that was filed, and it actually clarified that you don't have to wait for the whole year to ascertain whether there was excess, because otherwise then there will never be funding for the unprogrammed appropriation. So in the motion for reconsideration, the court clarified that based on a quarterly report by the DBM, there can be a determination of whether the target has been met.
Okay, just to be clear, I will flash now the triggers in the unprogrammed funds. Okay, 2024 was quite unique. There was a subparagraph D. And subparagraph D is now non-existent. It is null and void. It was stricken down in the PhilHealth case. Okay, so we are left with the first trigger. And the first trigger, if you notice, it says coming from the excess revenue. I have to look at my copy because I cannot also see. Okay, so the first trigger is excess revenue collection in or any one of the identified non-tax revenue sources from the corresponding revenue. If you compare it with letter A of 2025, same. Compare with letter with 2026. identified non-tax revenue sources from its corresponding revenue collection targets as reflected in the BESF. Then in the letter B, new revenue collections or those arising from new taxes or non-tax sources. Also letter B, also letter B of 2026. Approved loans, the difference is letter D, it does not exist, correct?
Correct.
Do you notice any other differences? In 2025 and 2026, excess revenue collections in total revenues was removed. Correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
As well as fund balance of GOCC.
Correct,
Yes.
Your Honor.
This is the only provision in the GAA which controls where excess revenues, new tax sources are to be spent. Correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
So there is nothing in the GAA which allows the DBM and the President to allow ESARO to be used immediately to pay for unprogrammed appropriations. Correct? In other words, when there is excess revenue, nakalagay dito excess revenue. So pwedeng gamitin na kaagad sa unprogrammed appropriations. Tama?
Correct, Your Honor.
So, ibig sabihin, the category of programmed and unprogrammed is really, does not really have a material difference. Because in the interpretation of government, pwede kapag merong excess na pera, excess na revenue, na hindi naka-earmark, na pwedeng gamitin na ito kaagad sa unprogrammed funds. Tama?
Tama po, Your Honor.
And that was why Senator Drilon was actually proposing that we have to be clearer. And actually also Secretary Butch was also saying that, and of course Secretary Jokno was also saying, you have to discipline all of this so that it's very clear that it should be in program funds, correct? And constitutionally, it matters because once you transfer a PAP, a program and project and program coming from program funds, okay, and you transfer it to unprogrammed funds, and you want to fund it immediately, you can increase the amount of unprogrammed funds, like in 2024, you can transfer funds there so that it continuously increase, and the fiscal space created in the program funds, you can reallocate. And then you can have the chance of still having it funded. And in the interpretation of government, you do not violate 25(1) because to you, the limit is the program. Correct?
Correct, Your Honor, because again, in the analogy that we attempted to include, that we attempted to make in regard to programmed and unprogrammed, is in number one, the prioritization of the programs. So if you put a PAP, a project,
Madam Solgen, how do you say that it's a priority? So we have deficit. Ibig sabihin, mas malaki yung gagastusin natin kaysa yung nakukuha na kinikita natin. Pero kapag lumaki yung kita natin, what you're saying is, there is nothing in the GAA, and I do not see anything in the GAA, which says you have to fund the program first before you go to unprogram. Is there?
okay. Yung pong, kaya ko po sinasabi na priority, sapagkat yung sa NEP pa lang, ikinocommit na po ng executive na kung ako ay magtatrabaho at ganito ang mga economic factors, kinocommit ko na meron akong kikitain ng, let's say, 1 billion pesos. Priority po yon sapagkat kinomit na ni executive. Kaya yung mga nakalista doon, pagka na-meet na po yung targets, then they will finance the program. So the